Welcome. Nayaswami Nitai is the co-founder of Living Wisdom School, the first Living Wisdom School, which was in the year of 1972 in Ananda Village. He's been working since then for children, with children, and he's been worldwide director of Education for Life. He's a pioneer, important teacher for all the aspiring EFL teachers worldwide. And from that one school in 1972, there are many schools now, which is in Europe and, of course, in the village. And soon we will see how it is going to be in India also. So today we are going to listen to a beautiful inspiration that Nayaswami Nita is going to share with us. And the topic for today is children in the spiritual community and what is their role, their mission in the entire divine plan. For us, it's master's plan. Yogananda is our master. So what is their role in the master's plan? We're going to see that today with Nayaswami Nitai. Welcome.
If you ask me to start with a song. It's a little off. Okay, that's close. So this is one of Swami Kriyananda's children's songs. There are, I don't know, maybe a dozen of them. This one is nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. It's pretty simple lyrics. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Simple lyrics, amazing thought. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing to fear anymore. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Nothing on earth can hold me. Rise, O my soul, in freedom. Okay, we'll meditate for a little bit. Take the feeling of that song, a chant. We have challenges in our lives, but by connecting ourselves with that divine source, nothing on earth can overcome us. We have the power to see everything that comes to us as an opportunity for growth, to rise to the occasion, and to move through it on our journey toward light, perfection, and joy. Om, Om, Om. Welcome this evening. It's fairly auspicious time. 75 years ago yesterday, on July 31st, 1949, there was a special garden party in a very exclusive part of Los Angeles, California, called Beverly Hills. It used to be where all the movie stars lived, and there were all these big mansions there. And one of the families there, at least one of them, I think more, had found out about this unusual Indian teacher who had moved to Los Angeles 25, excuse me. So it had been about a little over 20 years at that point. So a lot of people had found out about Paramahansa Yogananda. And these people were quite wealthy, and they were hosting a garden party in honor of Master, and invited him, of course, to be the main speaker there. And that night, instead of giving kind of a calm, kind of a retrospective of maybe the last 20 years and how he worked in Los Angeles, he gave this very powerful speech. If you read or heard Swami Kriyananda describe it, he said it was the most powerful speech he'd ever heard. In fact, he didn't think people could speak that way. He thought that the heavens were going to open up and the angels were going to come marching through. And it was a speech about World Brotherhood colonies. And he started off, "This day marks the birth of a new era." And then he went much more powerful than that, but he kind of went on from there, and spoke for, I don't know, I wasn't, obviously I wasn't there. I was 3 years old at the time. So, but he said he was putting his thoughts in the ether. He was trying, this idea was so powerful that he wanted to impregnate the ether with it, that it would be there so that it would manifest in some way, in some form. And the idea is maybe the most important idea of the last couple of centuries, in the sense that he was portraying a new kind of lifestyle that would be based on spirituality, that everything about the community would be based on spirit and the spiritual search. The grocery store would be based on spirit, the gardens would be it, and of course the schools and every aspect of it. So Swami Kriyananda, he was J. Donald Walters at that point. He hadn't been made a Swami yet. He'd only been with Master about a year at that point. And in retrospect, it all fits together. You just see how, Master could have given that speech at any point in his life. He chose to give it that night, especially with this young monk in the audience, Donald Walters. Swami Kriyananda was there. He was one of the monks who were demonstrating yoga postures that night to the guests. And so, but when Master gave this talk, it just touched Kriyananda at his core, and he vowed there, he said, I will do everything I can to make this happen. So one of the Nanda members, I don't know if any of you know Ram Smith. He's a wonderful, good friend of mine, and I think he's been to India a few times. But I think it was he decided we should call that Ananda's Conception Day, because that was when Master put out this incredible energy to make it happen. Well, it took 20 years, from 1949 to 1969. J. Donald Walters became Swami Kriyananda. He did many, many things over those 20 years, but always in the back of his mind was this thought, when are we going to do these World Brotherhood colonies? Master thought they were so important. Why? And nobody else that he talked to resonated with it. People said, I'm not interested. There were, of course, in Master's work, mostly it was led by monks and nuns, and they were interested in their own lives and their own lifestyle. The fact that people got married and had children really wasn't part of their reality. It was just kind of something that people did. So nobody picked it up. But things worked out that Swami was on his own. Most of you know the story, how it happened. And he was really free to follow his own inspiration. And so in 1969, he purchased the land for the first World Brotherhood colony. 2 years earlier, he had purchased a smaller parcel of land. If you've been to California, you know it's about 5 miles deeper into the woods. It's now called an Ananda Meditation Retreat. And that was purchased more as a place for adults to come to do to take a seclusion, to take a retreat on your own. Children didn't really mix in very well. It was a relatively small piece of land, and children need space. And I remember one time I was there in the early days, and we were having a meditation, and all of a sudden there's this scrambling and grunting and somebody climbing up the outside walls of the place we were in. And it was, her name was Cece. Cece was about 5 years old at the time. And she decided that place looked like a really good climbing wall, and she was going to go up to the top of it. Her motivation was completely pure. I mean, why would she wanted to explore, she wanted to test her muscles and all the things that 5-year-olds like to do. But for a retreat, it didn't work so well because the adults are sitting there trying to meditate and they keep hearing these noises. So that among other things, there were other factors, pushed Swami to realize he needed to buy a separate piece of land. Well, miraculously, this much larger piece of land became available, and very miraculously, the initial money came through to make the commitment to buy the land. It created a challenge for the next 20 years of paying this mortgage off, or maybe it was longer than that, but at least 20 years. But the land was purchased, and now there could be a place for families and for children. So tonight we're talking about the role of children in all this. Well, children are what make a World Brotherhood colony different than a convent or a monastery. If you don't have children, you have adults. And the adults, we know very well what a monastery is like or what a convent's like. There's many, many, many examples of that around the world. They do a lot of good work. They provide a wonderful lifestyle for those people who are drawn to that kind of thing. But what Master was saying, the evolution of the ages has gotten to a point now that you can grow as a householder just as much as you can grow as a monk or a nun. That wasn't always the case. It was all, before, when the world was in a grosser age. For those of you who know about the yugas, I won't go into it tonight, but we're coming out of a very dark age from the 600, or actually 499 AD was the nadir. That was when the consciousness of the planet was the lowest. If you want to find out more about it, read Sri Teshwar's book, the holy science. But anyway, ever since 499, it started to come up, but not very quickly. And if you do any study of history and you really get into what was life like in those ages, it was pretty bad, gross. You know, the Romans were entertaining themselves by watching people be torn apart by wild animals. You might think some of the things that happen nowadays are bad, but comparatively, we've come a long way. And as the consciousness evolves, more things become possible. And one of the things that became possible was that you could live as a householder. And we actually had the model of that at the beginning of this path. Who was the first Kriyaban? The Lahiri Mahashaya. The Lahiri Mahashaya was a householder. That wasn't an accident, right? He was showing right from the very beginning that this is possible. Now, Ananda as a community nurtures all lifestyles. There are great places for people to be, who are like the place up in Chandigarh right now that the monks are creating a monastery up there. It's wonderful work. But the heart of Ananda's mission is the householder, providing for the householder, because there are not other options for that. To do this, you have to have, one of the things that a World Brotherhood colony provides is support. You have other people that you're living with on a daily basis who are trying to do basically the same thing you're trying to do. They're trying to give their lives to God. They're trying to spiritually purify themselves to be able to be instruments for the divine. And so you have this, it's like, in some ways, it's like an ongoing spiritual laboratory, because you get to know your brothers and sisters really well, and you get to watch and you see what works and what doesn't work. One of the things that works, you see, what you can see, and I got to see, is there's a spiritual law that people who think first of other people grow more quickly spiritually than people who think of themselves first. If you think of yourself first, which is kind of the mantra of most society now, let me get mine first, and maybe later if I have a little bit extra, I'll give you some. But it's me first. And so in a spiritual community, there are people who are like that. Not everybody who comes to a spiritual community is a saint. In fact, nobody comes to a spiritual community as a saint. Everybody would like to be a saint, but the process is quite educational to watch. And so you sit back after 10, 15, 20 years and you see, oh, I remember that person. I remember how they made their choices and stuff. And what happened to them? Where did they go? They're not here anymore. And then other people you say, oh, that person, they used to be kind of meek, and they didn't seem like they had a lot of energy. Well, look at them now. And you see, well, why did that happen? And you can just see in real life time how these spiritual teachings that anybody can read in a book, but how do they get lived out on a day-to-day basis? So spiritual World Brotherhood Colony is a powerful, powerful place to be able to live. And anybody who has a chance gets that option, I highly encourage it. That's been one of the biggest blessings of my life. I mean, the biggest blessing was getting connected to Master. And the next one is probably meeting Swami Kriyananda. But the third one was being able to live in a World Brotherhood Colony for most of my adult life. So when you have men and women together, children are likely to happen. There's kind of a law of attraction that happens. I remember there was this one part of Ananda village in the early days, and it was called St. Francis Hill. And so there was a lot of people created their housing on that. I'll give you a little bit of background. You've heard stories, but it was incredibly primitive in the beginning. The community was, the land that became available for it was basically a very old farm. It had a main farmhouse and a lot of agricultural buildings that were all falling apart. Most of you heard the story of me being assigned the chicken coop to start the school in. So to get housing, you had to be really creative. And so people were built, Davy, all of you know Davy, she lived in a tree house for a couple of years. And, just a little house built in a tree. And people built had teepees. Teepees are a part of the Native American culture. And they found out, the beginning people in Ananda found out that it's pretty cheap housing. a teepee. You just go out in the woods and you cut a bunch of poles that are the same length, and you put them up, and then you cover them with canvas, and you've got a house. So that was one of the ways. And some people bought little travel trailers to live in and stuff like that. But it was really, one lady lived in what they called the Plastic Palace. Anyway, this all happened on what was called St. Francis Hill. Well, there were men living there and there were women living there. And about a year and a half later, they changed the name from St. Francis Hill to Honeymoon Hill. And then about another couple of years later, it was called Baby Lane. So, but it was all fun to watch it evolve, and that was as Ananda was taking its shape. In the beginning, there were no models for how to do a householder community. It was the first one, so it was definitely pioneering work. People were learning by trial and error. The first thing that really worked at Ananda were the monastery and the convent. There were a group of very dedicated people who wanted to join Ananda, and they were committed to be single at that point. Swami Kriyananda was single at that point. And then by divine decree, I think it was like 1980, 1979, 1980, Swami Kriyananda became married for a while, and just shifted the focus and kind of opened the door that, maybe this spiritual marriage is not such a pitfall that people think about. And so that changed things. I just personally, I was the head of the monastery in the 1970s. And 1980, all of a sudden, I found myself in a relationship with a lady, and it was like this wave of, it was just very tangible. Master was coming in to say, now, okay, you've had this community now for a little over 10 years. You kind of know the basics. You got it out of the mud now. Now let's get into the real part of it. Let's start to pursue this. Jyotish and Devi obviously were the first ones to break through that barrier. So I'll let them tell their own story. That they're coming in September, is that right? Or November, okay. Okay, all right. So you can ask them about those early days and what they were going through, because it wasn't obvious that they were going to get married in the beginning. They didn't come to the community married. So anyway, so then the children started arriving. Well, there had been children there since the very beginning, because the community also attracted families, but it was very hard to stay at Ananda in the early days as a family. First of all, it was economically very challenging to support a family living basically about an hour and a half from the nearest city. So Sacramento was the nearest city there, and it's very hard to earn that kind of money out because there was no internet. Now the internet has opened up a huge amount of opportunities to be able to live that. Everybody knows you can live in the forest and find a way to support yourself. So so there had been children there, and my job was to work with those children right from the beginning. Most of the children didn't stay that long in the beginning because the families didn't stay that long. They would come and they would go. We had of that original group, there was just one boy that actually stayed there for the rest of his childhood. But from my perspective, right from the beginning, I started to see the value, or it was shown to me the value of having children around, what it did. One of my first wake-up calls was a fairly dramatic story. So this was right summer of 1972. We just started the school. I was still trying to figure out what does it mean to have a spiritual school? What is Master's ideas of how to live schools? What do they mean in practice? So one of the things I came across was a book that I'd never heard about before, that you all know well. It's called the Ramayana. And I thought, Ramayana, this looks like a good book. And it was called Ramayana for Kids. And so I started reading it. I thought, yeah. So I would read a chapter and take a few notes, and I would come back the next day and I would tell the story. It was one of the first things that really worked in the school. The kids loved the story. They wanted to come to school every day just so they could hear this story. And so it just started to become part of our routine. We start with a little song. I'd tell the story, and we just go on from there. Well, as the story goes on, you all know it. There's a part where Hanuman leaps through the sky to go to Sri Lanka. And the way that this book was written, it said Hanuman leaped through the sky like a meteor to go to the Sri Lanka. And so these were young kids. They were 4, 5, 7 years old. And so I'd always stop when we got to a big word. I'd say, okay, who knows what this means? So I say, okay, who knows what a meteor is? Hanuman's leaping through the sky like a meteor. What's a meteor? One of the kids raised their hand, and I said, okay, what's a meteor? He says, somebody eats meat. So we had this great big picture of Hanuman leaping through the sky with a Big Mac in his mouth, And I thought that was very funny, and I tried not to laugh. And but then later in the story, Rama's going through the forest, and he comes to a place where there's a man sitting very still under a tree, and the man's in samadhi. And so I stop again. I say, okay, now here's another big word, samadhi. Who knows? Who has any idea what samadhi means? And so the youngest girl, youngest student, she's only 4 years old, and her name was Nicole. And she raised her hand, and I said, okay, Nicole, what is samadhi? And so Nicole looks up at me, and she was very thoughtful. She said, it means you're sitting there by yourself, and you're really still. And somebody comes up to you, and they say, Nicole, Nicole, and there's nobody there to answer. I was stunned. I just my jaw literally dropped. It was like, wow, where did that come from? How could a 4-year-old give an answer like that? And so it was, I was already, obviously I was into kids and stuff, but that just helped me deepen my awareness of who are these little people? People, they have little bodies right now that they're learning how to work, but who knows where they came from? Where did their spirits come from? What's underneath that with them? And just really perked up. We were talking earlier today with the parents about going into the child's world and honoring where they're at, and really being present for them in their own space. Why? Because it's a source of incredible gifts to the general population that aren't really appreciated yet. This swing of the consciousness through the ages, Sri Teshwar calls them yugas. We're still at the kind of really towards the bottom, but I deeply feel that as the consciousness lifts, people will appreciate more and more the gift of childhood and the gifts that children bring to our societies, to our planet. And so the consciousness of a child, there's a freshness to it. There's a lightness, there's a brightness, of course not all the time, right? We all know that kids have their ups and downs, but when they're in their ups, when they're in their childlike space, there's a purity. It's just almost overwhelming when you look at it. It's just like, oh my goodness, what is that quality that just came out? I've got to hang out with my grandson now, who's just turned 6, and I've had many different experiences, just being kind of in awe of him when he's on. He can also throw a tantrum with the best of them, but he has these, when he's in this other state, he's just so magnetic and joyful. And those are the gifts that don't happen in a monastery or a convent. Adults get kind of serious, especially monks and nuns usually get kind of serious. And the spiritual path can become too serious. But who is that? One of the Christian saints said, a sad saint is a bad saint. But joy, Master talks about it a lot. Joy is the essence of the spiritual path, the message of the journey. We're trying to move toward a state of joy. Well, children model that for us just naturally. And you can just, when you see it, it's as good as being by a saint. It's just like, wow, for that moment, you get a little taste of that's what it's all about. That's what I need. I had a personal experience. I have a daughter who's now 40, but when she was about 4, I still remember we had a house and it had a stairway. We had a little small second floor, and there's a stairway going up the second floor, and you go up about 4 or 5 steps, and there was a little landing, and then it turned around and went up another few steps. So I'm walking down the hallway, and so I'm like this, and the stairway is over here, and then there's a landing up there. And I don't know where my daughter is. I was busy with something else. My mind was someplace else. I'm walking down the hallway, and all of a sudden I hear this little voice say, "Daddy, catch!" And I turn around, the voice, and my daughter is flying through the air, having leapt off the landing. But she was so sure that Daddy would catch her that she just let it go. And I thought, God, what trust! What incredible! Maybe it was misplaced. It could have been misplaced if maybe I didn't hear her or something like that. But I did hear her, and I did catch her, so everything was fine. But I was just again, I was awed by the level of trust that was in that. And I think that when Jesus says, he says, unless you become again like little children, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. And what does he mean by that? Well, trust. Could we ever trust God the way that she trusted me in that moment? Just to really, I saw a beautiful saying yesterday. It was, the one you are seeking is also seeking you. And it's just like, oh, we don't have to do it all ourselves. It's not like we're struggling here to get this, this meditation technique down or get this quality out of our system or whatever it is. The divine is also doing whatever. Actually, when you think about it, the divine is working overtime to try to get us to come back home. But the way that the divine does that was by giving us opportunities for growth. And most of us don't want that. We want to we just want to stay. we don't need any challenges in our life. But there's those challenges that come in are the opportunities to move forward and to grow. But we don't have that kind of trust, so we kind of try to look around them a lot. But when we have children around, they're constantly showing us these qualities. They're giving us glimpses. Again, it's a rare child. I don't know if have known any of them. They're in that state all the time. Most of them, maybe glimpses is what we get, but we do get glimpses. And I would say, I can't think of any examples where there was a child that didn't show those qualities once in a while. And if you have, and for them, it's so important. It's so important for them to have people appreciate those qualities when they have them. Just not necessarily verbally, but show that we really appreciate that when they have those qualities. That give them an extra hug or whatever it is. Just that, wow, and you might even say thank you. I don't know. It's such a beautiful thing. If they don't have that, if they don't have sensitive adults around who can appreciate that, those qualities start to wither. They're not cultivated, and they start to disappear. And maybe they'll be covered up for a whole lifetime. Who knows? But if they do have people who value those things and who let them know that was wonderful, I really appreciated that, it'll stay alive. And we were, Nitai and I were talking about today, that's kind of the goal of our high school, is that we want to see teenagers carrying that childlike quality with them in a teenage way. They're not going to look like 4-year-olds anymore, but we want to see that same spirit when they graduate, and that when they go out into adult life, they haven't lost it. You could say that's the whole purpose of an education for life school, is to cultivate that childlike quality, not inculcate it. Some people use the word inculcate, and I don't like that word. It's like, we don't put it in the child. It's already in the child. What we do is recognize it and value it and show our appreciation for it and cultivate it. That's what Master says. Teachers are soul molders, or they're like gardeners that cultivate the spiritual essence of a child. So a good education for life teacher is simply somebody who is sensitive to those qualities and who appreciates them and who does whatever they can, trial and error, because we're all learning this thing. Most of us don't have models as teachers or parents who did that. Fortunately, though, most people have somebody in their life who did that for them in some way. Might have been an aunt or an uncle or a grandma, or maybe it was a teacher, somebody who just gave you that message that you're valuable. I really appreciate you the way you are, and thank you for sharing that quality with me. doesn't take that much for a child. I found that too. It's wonderful. I thought, does it need to be cultivated every day? And no, it doesn't have to be, but it needs to be cultivated enough that the child carries that with them. Yes, this is a really good quality. We were talking about this boy earlier today who he's 4 years old, and he really has a wonderful heart quality. And he goes around and he wants to show everybody, he loves to hug them and give them this love, but he does it in a very active physical way that the kids don't necessarily like. And he might grab somebody and hit them, and it comes like that. And so it was like, wow, that's a wonderful opportunity there. If you have an adult who sees the essence and says, you know, what you're doing is wonderful. What you're trying to do is incredible. It's saintly. But you need to learn how to do it because you're creating resistance in your friends by slamming them in the head or the back or whatever it was. And so if the child gets that guidance at an early age, he can carry that quality with him and it can grow. And if he doesn't get it, it's going to die out really fast because he gets this very confusing response. He gives love and he gets smacked back. He gets people scolding him for being a naughty boy. So again, coming back to this theme, if we can integrate the spirituality of children into the lives of adults, it's a powerful, powerful tool for growth for all of us, for the kids and for us, and to follow Jesus's direction for us. So a World Brotherhood colony at its core is a place where that is possible to do. Because you're getting, again, the adults are getting the reinforcement from their peers. Like we talked this afternoon about the pressure on parents to get your children to learn their ABCs. And if they're 3 years old and they're not learning to spell, you're behind and they're gonna regret it. And you just feel that's the tangible pressure. Well, if you have adults around you, other parents saying, have you really appreciated your kid's childlikeness lately? And I saw your son do this yesterday, and wow, it's so inspiring. That's the kind of thing that can happen and then when that happens in a World Brotherhood colony, of course, it just blossoms to everybody. It's a real saint is very childlike. And you can see, I remember just seeing moments when Swami Kriyananda would show that part of himself. He didn't show it all the time or even a lot, but sometimes you would just see this really beautiful, innocent, sweet energy flow out of him. And it was like, oh, that's so sweet. He when founding Ananda, he knew he'd already been in charge of a monastery earlier in his life. And he knew how serious people can get about the spiritual path. And I remember I'd only been there a few months, and he invited us all over to his house for a satsang. And so I went over, and the satsang consisted of him taking out this book called by P.G. Wodehouse, who was a British humor. And he would read us. You can see these videos of these things if you look at YouTube. It's just humor, and it was a humor that I actually had a hard time appreciating in the beginning. I was like, But I'd watch him, and he would laugh so hard and so authentically that I started to think, wow, there must be something here. So I gradually started to like P.G. Wodehouse over the, but what I did like right from the beginning was Swami's just this beautiful laughter and joy that would bubble up from him while he was reading these stories. And what he was doing was modeling for us is don't be over serious. Yes, the spiritual path has a serious part to it. You have to be committed and stuff like that, but don't overdo it. And of course, Master did the same thing for him. There's that incredible story of Master calling Swami into his office and saying he'd already told Swami he thought he was being too serious as a young monk. And he turns the lights out and he says, I have something for you, Walter. And Walter's, all right, sir. And Master pulls out this little pistol and starts shooting it. And it has this little light that comes off it and it glows in the dark. And he looks at Swami and he says, what do you think, Walter? And Swami says, very good, sir. And he was being jolted out of that over seriousness. So it's a strong message that we need to take for ourselves too. So we can lighten up a bit, and then the children can show us the way. Okay. Right. Nice to share with you. Does anybody have a question they want to ask before I stop?
When did you join Ananda? When did you come to Ananda?
I got to come when I was 23 years old, 24, and 19. I first went there. Well, I came back. Most of you know, I started in New Delhi. I got the autobiography of Yogi in New Delhi. Figured out by chapter 30 that no, this writer who I was very inspired by was not living in India anymore. That he'd gone to the West. He'd gone to my home state in the West, California. And so I went back there, and I was drawn up to Ananda village, and got to start right there. So yeah, I have this incredible group of friends from those years. Now we're all in our 70s now and higher, and but the bond that I have with them from living in spiritual community with them for those years I don't know if it's eternal, but it's there for at least this whole lifetime deeply. And you see each other and you just kind of, yeah, hi. And you might not see each other very often, but it's just like this deep bond that you just share with them. That was when I can tell a little bit about that. So I arrived for my first day visit at Ananda, and I didn't know really what this place was. I think I knew that it was somehow connected to Yogananda, that was my motivation for going up to check it out. But I didn't know anybody there. Maybe this is a big sham, who knows? And so they had a work study program, which I didn't have a lot of money. So I signed up for the work study program. And next day after I arrived, they put me on a work detail. And we're on this work deal with two other guys. And they're very different guys. They're very different personalities. One guy is really tense, and we have to do it this way, and you hold the shovel this way, and don't make any mistakes over here. And it's exhausting to be around him. and the other guy was just kind of much more laid back. They're just like, yeah, we're going to work on this project today, and we'll make some progress. And how would you like to do it? And I knew one of them was on staff, and one of them was a guest. And I didn't know which one. And so by about halfway through the morning, I'm thinking, if the tense guy is on staff and he's representing Ananda, I'm out of here tomorrow. I can't deal with this anymore. And if the other guy is on staff, I'm going to stay because I'm going to check this out. So at lunchtime, I found out that the calm guy was on the staff. And the calm guy, some of you know him, was Jaya. And, and it was like, that was my time to meet Jaya. It's been 55 years ago, 54 years ago. And I just resonated with him. And it was in a way that I had not resonated with anybody on the planet up until that point. It was just like, there's something about this guy that I can just vibrate with. And just like, I can relax because he's being who he is and I'm being who I am. And that somehow they work together. And then staying there that summer, I got to meet other early Ananda people, Seva, Asha, Devi, other people, and I found out I had this similar resonance with those people. It wasn't a personality thing so much; it was just a vibrational thing. And by the end of the summer, I thought, these are my people. And I didn't even know I had people. I didn't even know there were people on the planet that I'd resonated with. In fact, I didn't think there were. I'd been bopping around looking for some place that I felt in tune with. I couldn't even use those words in those days, or just feel someplace where I felt comfortable. And then I realized, these people share a common energy that why not? Why not join with them? And this crazy project that we were on is trying to, build things out of the dirt. Most of my jobs that summer was digging outhouse holes because that was the only sanitation we had at that point. So anyway, that was the beginning of the first World Brotherhood colony.
Just to let everybody know that Nayaswami Jaya, when he met first time, he's the spiritual director of India Ananda now. Yeah. So he's mostly living in US right now, but I think from last 20 years he was in India.
Yeah.
So that's the first person who he met.
Yeah. And I still feel that connection with him whenever I see him. He's like, oh yeah, here we are. Oh, yeah, yeah. The schools have grown and changed, I mean, have expanded. There's a United States, there are schools, only a couple, but there's a residential school from preschool through 12th grade in Palo Alto, in Silicon Valley. And there's another school up in the village, not the village, not the village. And then in Europe, there are 4 schools in Italy right now, and I think 3 in Slovenia. And they're in India. I'm here in India to try to spread it here. So I'm working with 4 of the public schools up in Gurgaon and Delhi right now. And then, pardon? Well, it's been a mix. The most recent one that I'm working on right now is a government-run school. And then we have the beginning program here, right in this living room where we're sitting. That happens for, was it 3 to?
2 days a week.
No, I mean, what's the age of the children that come?
3 to 4 years, and then we have 8 to 10 years.
Okay, all right. And then there's a school up in the Himalayas near Srinagar, not the Srinagar and the famous one, Kashmir, but the one over farther east.
Near Rishikesh.
Yeah, up the road from Rishikesh. That's called the
Angel's Haven.
Angel's Haven. That's right. You were just there. That's we have we also have a online international high school. It's small, but we have a few students from. Yeah. Yeah.
From grade 1 to 10.
Right. One of the young women who was living here until recently, Nitika, just graduated from high school here and has now moved to Pune to continue with her university work. But,
She graduated from Living Wisdom Online International High School.
Yeah.
Now she is pursuing further in symbiosis into clinical psychology.
yeah. So it's been very rewarding lifetime for me just to kind of keep cultivating this idea and seeing. Say that again?
You must have had so many students under you.
Oh, yeah.
And school life must be.
Yeah. And they're getting older. My original students are now in their 60s. So it's wonderful. I'm not in touch with all of them by any means, but when you see some of them, it's just like, whoa, yeah, that's really neat to see.
Yes, one of the teachers we met, she moved the school. The small school, she started now, she moved to the US.
Uh-huh.
So she was a principal of the school, and she was not used to have a small school, like I think the first or second year. We should always stand getting the kids inside, waiting them, getting them inside with the bag from the gate, getting the kids inside. Initially, she started like about, she was the school for about 18 years old.
Uh-huh.
And we kept here, and we moved to the US.
Nice.
And she has a family.
Okay.
When they she meets a student like 18-year-old, and they just come her. She said, oh my God, I'm just seeing in the market sometimes.
Yeah. Teaching can be a very rewarding profession. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's one of the payoffs for being a teacher, if you're in a situation that can nurture those kind of connections. So, okay, thank you very much. Okay. Okay.
Did you speak about the school in Gurgaon that you're working with? Or?
Yeah, the public school, the government school, and then there's a couple of semi-private. Yeah, so, yeah, there's about 1,500 students altogether in those schools, so they're big schools. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.